reading it, sometimes you might forget. But I come up on plantation, Mitchell Plantation, but I never, just got our name now. I don't think so. Mitchell Plantation with my mom and daddy. And then in the house there was my grandmother and then my grandfather. And my mother married, we all we lived together. And my mother had, let me see, me and my brother, their daddy, we were the first two. I'm the oldest of 10. My mama raised 9 of us. The third child she had was a boy, he died. And I was the first girl, but 5 boys before she had another girl. I got 3 sisters, 3. I got 3 sisters, and they all live right here on Edisto. And 1 brother. And during that time it was, but to me, when you raise, people say it seemed hard, but to me, it wasn't hard. Like, we feed, you get our stomach full, we had clothes away, but one thing at that time it was school. We had to walk to school. I don't know how many miles from where I lived down in the seaside. That was on a Monday, and walk cold, got to walk into school. You had so froze up, they had wood heater. You had to go in the wood and cut, For the school too, you had to cut the wood and put that in the, whoever get in the morning, like the heater for the school, they walk to school. My brother sometimes, he had shoes, bare, Oh, wow. Yeah, it's rough, but anyhow, all that God bring us over, And it was hard. And I look back someday and wonder, how did I come over? But I heard, Lord bring us safe this far. Yes. And I felt sorry for my mother and my daddy. They have to work. We're making no money. I don't think you're making, I don't know, $50 a week a day. But during that time, thing was cheap. You could go to store, you had a kerosene lamp, no electric, kerosene lamp, no bathroom, no running water, outdoor, inside the house, you had a bucket at night, you use that, get up in the morning, dump it, like that, and I felt so sorry for my mama, so my mama had to work hard to take care of us, and my father, pregnant, got to go to work and working on the farm, and I always think about it many days, how my mother had to work, pregnant. On the farm, and you ain't making nothing much. You're working on the farm to take her on. And I thank them that they prayed for what they did for us. My mama said, like a feed y'all, and see that y'all get a stomach full. And if I don't, sometimes I see she got the pot, they can't go to the pot, and she said, I'll do that, tie my stomach tight for y'all, for my children to get something to eat. But all that, we children be happy. We had to do in the summertime, when the summer comes, we sleep in the bed in the winter. The summer comes, they take down, during that time, they take down everything, not to put them in the sun, and let it out. And then make comfort on the floor. On the summertime, we slept on the floor and stuff like that, But all that, you look back and wonder how you made it over. But I thank my people. They're dead and gone now, but I thank them in the grave how they bring us up. My father didn't let me run around like children going to club and this thing, and you're going to school and they're talking what good time we have and all like that, And I couldn't go to waste. My daddy told me you were going there until you get a certain time. And I glad what he did to me because they would let me get up there and run. I wouldn't know what I would have been today. I wouldn't know what I would have been or to make my life because I think I'm in the grave for that, for pulling me tight. Because I won't go now. Don't think you won't go. You won't go because of the rest of the kids. They're going out to go to school in the morning. They'll talk, oh yeah, good time last night. I thought that was something. Then you grow up here and learn better and understand. Exactly. You understand? You can't follow the crowd. You can't follow the crowd. But that's what makes us a lot of us today get in trouble. You go to the follow the crowd, but you sit and have good time. They're just talking, you know, what they talk about what kind of good time and things. I thought that was something good, but I glad that I wore a man. My father.
Yes.
To keep a tight rope on me. But I think back on one and I said it's more than one time. If he didn't do that, I don't know what would come of me today. I would have been old drunkard all day. Who know, I might not live this long. But my dad made me take care of myself. And it's
Tell him. I want her to share the story of her, and I know of my dad, of how you guys were brought up, getting down on your knees at night and praying, and getting up in the morning praying. It was 10 of them guys in the little cabin, that's in the 2-room cabin. My aunt and my dad was so close to each other. I thought they were husband and wife. They were very close. They would come and visit. Oh no, we don't have to sleep in a separate bed. We sleep in the same bed. And at night, they held hands. They got on their knees and prayed. How many people could get on their knees now and pray to the Lord? Still doing it at 94 years old. In the morning before her and my dad get up to do anything, holding hands on the knees, praying before they did anything. And I can tell you some stories that will make you cry about my dad and what I know about him. My father was a praying man. In the church on Sundays when they called for him to pray, not only are you crying and you crying, you know he's praying because he's praying from the heart. God heard his prayer. He's crying. And when a man cries and he's praying to the Lord, and not just one prayer that he's praying, my dad has a different prayer for every day of the week. For a man that has never went to school to learn anything in the textbook, 3rd grade, that's all he had, to learn anything in the textbook, Daddy could read every sign on the highway and could go anywhere. Now, my brother here, that's my dad's own self. Can tell you the mile marker where you are when we call him and tell him, hey, we're at an Archwork. Oh, you at mile marker. We don't know the mile marker. We read the signs. He can tell you. And that's what Daddy used to do to us. We could tell Daddy we're on the way home from Maryland. Daddy would tell us what time we will be on Edisto. And he looks for us at that time. Gives us stops in between because we're girls. But he looks for us at a certain time. When we call him and tell Daddy, oh, you at well, we're in Virginia. How do you know the mile marker in Virginia? He knew it. He knew the roads. Daddy could not read, but Daddy read the signs, and he knew how to get from A to B without opening the textbook to read it. But he can tell you. In math, I don't know where they learned it, but throw out some numbers, and he can tell you. I'm like, why you didn't give us that? We know how to read, but the numbers, it just didn't add up in our heads like that. But for her, it did. For us, we're readers. She's a math person. I don't like to read that much. That's how we learn. But we learn from each other. But when I saw my aunt and my dad do that, that was the strangest thing to me, being the youngest. And I'm like, well, I thought he's married to my mama. So why? His sister and him, we didn't know. You don't know any better if you're not taught any better. Nowadays, and I'll say this for the younger generation, we have houses and everybody have their own room. Oh, don't do this, don't go in my room, you can't do that. They didn't come up like that. We weren't brought up like that. In my mom's house, the house that we live in right now, currently, I can remember 2 beds being in one room. 2 to the head, 2 to the foot. In one room, that's how we slept. We grew up with that bond, and that bond is still there today. And even looking at my aunt and my dad when they were doing that back in 2000, okay, Marvette, you're the youngest. Pay attention. This is a family bond. And a family that stays together and prays together will last. And we have throughout the times. So I really love my family, and I love the rich history and everything of Edisto, and not knowing of your grandmother's house being a slave cabin, to hear that and have to learn that, that makes you go back and try to figure out the history of what happened and what really took place on Edisto Island. And we're still learning. We're still learning. So I wanted them to hear that story.
Yeah,
I know you probably will tell it.
Yeah, and also, where Aunt Jewel and Granddaddy and them, they grew up at, we used to call it Bailey.
Yeah, that was.
I never knew of it as nothing besides Bailey. However, when my grandmother, when I used to visit my great grandmother, it was interesting to go to her because she would babysit us. So she would always fix cornbread, and she had this old coffee pot with the little percolator thing on the top, if you ever know what I'm talking about. So she would never let me taste coffee, and that was her drink. I don't know if that was her Budweiser or whatever, but coffee was her drink. And she says, you can't drink that because it's gonna burn your chest. I said, well, one day I'm gonna get some. She keep telling me I'm not gonna drink it. So I went in, I got some, and it was strong. I said, oh, I don't want this no more. But she made that cornbread in that pot belly wood stove in a cast iron pan and stuck it in there. And we ate cornbread, and that was the best cornbread. And then on the other side of the cabin, well, it was Mama's house. It was another dirt road that went on to the right side of it. And there's water back there. The water back there is blue like the Bahamas water. I didn't know until I was like 14, 15 years old, when Grandma Emmy was telling me the stories, that was the pathway for the slaves to come in on Edisto, because it was a plantation. And I think when we went to take the cabin apart, they found another cabin that was down there, but it was in such bad shape. But the one where my grandfather and Jew grew up in, a deer was standing in the middle.
Oh, wow.
It was just standing there with those big horns on it. They were standing in the middle of it, and I was happy to be a part of taking it apart board for board and putting it on the back of the tractor trailer that took it to Washington.
So just imagine that being home and you knew nothing about it. The only thing that's missing from the cabin that's housed in DC right now is the front porch. And that's what we used to use as our dugout when we went to Mama's house. We didn't have a real ball and a real bat. We had a can that we crushed down. That was our ball. And we had a 2x4, whatever the wood was called. And that was our bat. But we had the best fun, and all that open space back there. That's the only thing that's missing from that cabin is the porch. And that was our dugout. But that was home, and that was Mama's house to us.
No, it was just, that's all we ever knew. My dad would always put us on the back of the truck on Sundays or whatever day, and we would go to Mama's house, and it was a place where you could run wild. And nowadays, kids can't run wild because there's so many things happening out there. But you could go there, you could run wild, you felt safe, and you was free to, just do whatever you wanted to do outside. And there was always food there. Every time you went there, you could have a good time. There was always food, and there was always a good breeze. I can't remember growing up where the weather was like really, really hot and you couldn't tolerate it. I don't remember that growing up because we played outside. But now we can't stand the hot weather like it is. But when we was growing up, it was probably hotter. But we didn't know that, and we always had that cool breeze that came off of the water there when we went to Mama's house, because that's what we called it, Mama's house. And they had these windows. I don't know if you guys have seen, but it was windows like it had they call them shutters, right? They had the shutters on them where they would open them up during the day, because that's how you got light in the house. You open them up during the day because there was no light, no electricity. They used the kerosene lamp. So you would open them up during the day, then you would shut it down, when night came. But, you know, growing up on Edisto Island and the values and the morals that your parents and your grandparents, taught you, we may have thought then that they were really strict, and because like my aunt said, everybody else was going out and having a good time, and my dad didn't allow too much of that to go on. If he took you there, he was coming back to get you at a certain time, and you better be ready. He says, I'll be back at 11 o'clock. You may not have gone until 9 or 9:30, but you better be standing there where he tell you he's gonna pick you up at. And so, you know, so I thank my parents as well, and my grandparents, you know, for the values and the morals that they instilled in us when we was growing up, and not to be selfish people, you know, because you should always aim or try to help somebody, you know, along the way in this life, because you never know when you're going to need somebody to help you. You know, and sometimes people say, well, you're too free-hearted, or you're too, you know, giving or whatever, but that's what I know, you know, and I thank my parents, grandparents for teaching me that, because my mom would always say, if your hands are always closed, nothing will ever come in. So you have to open up your hands to other people if you want your blessings to come back to you, you know, so.
And I'm talking, I'm sorry, in the words of my pastor, when my mom passed away, that was the first person that I walked into at the funeral home. My heart melted. He said, oh, no, don't do this. You got this. You had it all along. You got this. So, you know, I was saying to somebody, we really haven't had an opportunity or time to just grieve my mom's death. So what was told to me by my brother, she don't want you to grieve her death. She wants you all to go on, live life, and live this legacy on, be happy. And I'm telling you, we haven't had an opportunity from April up until today to stop and just think about what has really transpired in us and my mom leaving this earth. But I saw her early this morning. I pretended that I did not see her early this morning. And I knew she wanted me to see her, because when I looked, I saw the person, kind of the shadow, kind of walk behind me, and I'm laying in the bed, and I didn't want to see that, so I pretended that I didn't see it. And I looked again, and I was like, Mommy. And the minute I said, Mommy, Mommy disappeared. But I saw her in a gray suit. And I'm like, what's she looking for in my closet? Your clothes is up front. So when I said, Mommy, she disappeared from me. And I knew then I shouldn't have said anything. She lasted a little longer and I could say something. But when I called her, she didn't want to scare me or startle me or anything. I just went right on back on to sleep. And I'm just thinking about it right now, that the spirit and what she wants us to do. Last year we were supposed to do this same thing. She wasn't feeling that good, or something came up, and I said, well, we can do this, you know, next year. But God saw better. But in saying that, my mom was the type of person that if you have met her, the love that she pours out to people makes you want to come back and be around her more and more, and you just couldn't get enough. So imagine how her children felt, that she just gave that kind of love. It didn't matter who we brought home to her house, she poured that kind of love out to everybody. And you never left her house with something. Mommy would give you the whole house. Here, take it. She was just a kind-hearted, free-giving person. And I think that's how we are today. We do so much, and we don't have that time to just grieve what has just taken place. And she wants us to live on, be happy. She's planted the seed. I want you all to keep nurturing the ground that I have laid for you. And do well, and just go out and do your jobs and tell your story the best way you know how. you don't have me to tell the stories anymore. If you learn the stories, listen to the stories, you have them embedded in your heart and in your head. And that's all we have left today of my mom, what's embedded in our hearts and what's in our head and what she has taught us. She taught all of the other girls a lot of cooking stuff. Me, a lot of cleaning. I would go clean up the kitchen when you guys get finished. I don't like to cook, and she would tell people about that. So that's the best thing that my mom could have done. That book tells a story, but it doesn't tell the before story of what she endured throughout her life. You know, it tells a story, and I'm so grateful that she's gotten an opportunity to put that together and to put it out, because it opened the eyes of Edisto, and it opened the eyes to a lot of people in the world, for everybody to see that I've given myself to the world, not just by me cooking, giving you my heart, but by sharing her stories in that book. But there are a lot of backstories to the stories that she has told in that book. So there's a lot for people to learn, a lot of rich history. It's not just a cookbook, it's a book that you can sit down and read and say, you know what? This woman had a calling on her life for 89 years and was able to put it out to the world and become the New York Times bestseller, and to show the world that at any age, she was 89 at that time, at any age, you can do whatever it is that you want to do in life. Life doesn't have a number where you have to start doing certain things when you're young. Life has a number as well when you age. And I believe it's better when you age, because you have seen a lot of things, heard a lot of things, and then you've done a lot of things. And now to put it out to the world to really capture, it's kind of like my mom at 89 did all of this, and she would tell us, and she told her agents and stuff, talk to the general, talk to the corporal. I have what I have in my heart, in my hands, and in my head. So her writer had to take what was in her head and put it into this book and put it into her voice. And that's what that book depicts. Her voice, her stories, her food. She didn't want it jazzed up because they didn't have that jazzing up here like you have in the cooking environment today. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn it over to somebody else. Turn it over to somebody else. Turn to Dee.
I think, well, I know, not think, I know, I spent more time in the cabin than all the mommy kids, because Sunday was always my best day, because Daddy would always let me drive, and I would I always wanted to learn how to drive, and he would always let me drive, go Bailey to Mama house. Because we would go down there, like on a Saturday, we would always go crabbing, he would go fishing. I would always have my little string and my stick, and we would go crabbing, come back with my crab, and have his fish. Sometimes, like in the winter months, we'll go get oysters, come back, Mama would sit on that porch, and she would shuck them oysters, and I'd sit right here with her, Mama. We would sit, we would go inside, and when it get dark, getting dark at night, she would always light that kerosene lamp. She would always have that pipe, and the only thing I didn't like going back there to Mama house, I didn't like the smell of that pipe, but that was her thing and that was her house. So I couldn't tell Grandma what to do in her house, because that was her house. But that was about the only thing I didn't like about being in that cabin, is that smell of that pipe. But I think I spent more time in that cabin out of all of Mommy kids, because I would be one of them that would go there like almost every day through the week almost with my dad.
Whereas I went on
And-
Sundays because I could drive too.
And I would, sometimes I would walk over, it was a long walk for me, but I would walk back there some days, bare feet, sand burning my foot, can't wait to get to the grass or under the tree. My foot used to be burning, but I love going to grandmama's house. I used to love it.
Yeah, it was peaceful back there. It was like as if you went to a different world when you went back to Bailey. It was always breezy. It was just peaceful, and Grandmama Empty used to tell us the story of how her and Granddaddy met and how she would walk from where she lived to where Granddaddy lived. So they would sometimes meet in the middle. So I always said, well, what y'all was doing when you met in the middle? And she said, well, I said, well, yeah, I see now. Y'all didn't have TV because you had 10 little children. So y'all was doing something before y'all met in the middle to talk about whatever y'all was gonna do. But she always said, she would say how they would walk to school, like how Aunt Jewel said. She said it was almost like about three and a half to 5 miles that they had to walk to school. And the school that they walked to, it was, we call it Doll Store, but now it's called Edensville Groceries. So that was the store, but the school was across the road. That's where they walked to school. It was called Clark School. And then she says from there, then they went to Limer, Seaside School. And from Seaside School, they went to Limer Center, which was a little closer, but when you think of where y'all walked from, it's the same distance, it seemed like to me, it seemed to be the same distance. And my grandmother would always say that whatever you do, if you don't put love into it, if you rush into it, it don't taste the same as if you take your time and you do it. So we used to have cooking competitions, I guess that's the best way to say it. She would say, I want you to learn me how to do that. I was like, Grandmama, I need to teach you how to do it, not learn you how to do it. You heard what I said? I want you to learn me how to do it. So I like to bake, Dee Dee likes to bake. I make chewies, I make banana pudding, I do breaded and sex cake or whatever. But my grandma was a sweet lover. Even though she was a diabetic, she was a sweet lover. She said, I'll eat it now and pay for it later. So we would go, I would come to her house and we would just sitting down doing nothing. I think in December, Marvette and Poochie, Laverne and Marvette, she and Marvette and Dee Dee, they were there at the grandmama's house and they left. And you remember it was cold. So the two, Marvette and the general and the corporal, told her don't like the wood stove. So she waited until they left and she said, Niecy, are you coming over here? I said, yeah, I'm coming. I said, as soon as I drop Genesis off to school, Mama, I'll be there to you in the morning. So she was sitting in the wheelchair and she said, you remember how I taught you how to make the fire in the wood stove? Dee Dee was going to do the fire when she got off from work, but Dee Dee was taking too long. So she said, go on the back porch, take the kindling out the box, come put it right here, and she walked me through the whole process of lighting her wood stove. I knew how to do it, but Marvette and Poochie said don't light the wood stove. So I was pretending that I didn't know what to do, but I knew, so I just let her coach me through the whole thing. So I got the fire going, and she says, well, what you gonna cook today? I said, I don't know. I said, I wanna do some chili. She said, you got the wood stove going? She said, cook it right on the wood stove. So I brought my big old pot. I knew I was gonna cook, so I brought my big old pot and I put it on the wood stove and I started making the chili. And she sat right there with her house coat on and her leg crossed in the wheelchair, enjoying the fire. You need to go ahead and stir it now. I said, it's not sticking, Mom. Go ahead, stir the pot. So she was coaching me while I was cooking. So I said, well, it's ready now. I said, you want to taste it? She said, I'll get some in a little bit. So when I finally gave it to her, she said, this thing got some good seasoning. Seasoning better than on top of the stove.
Yeah.
But she was always used to cooking on the wood stove. Even though she had central heat and air in the wintertime, I don't think she really ever used it because she was so used to doing the wood stove. So the wood stove would heat the whole house. So they, my aunts and they all got together and did her central heat and air a long time ago, but the unit works, and she never use it. Right?
She only use it when we come home.
Yeah, because they said it's too hot, they turn it on, but she would let that wood stove heat the whole house.
But that's the heat that her body was conditioned to when she was growing up. That's what they had. So when you turn the central heat on, it was a different kind of heat for her, and it was like that wasn't the right kind of heat. She wanted to like feel, you know, like that heat that's coming from the stove out of that pot belly stove where it gets really hot. Yeah, so that's the kind of heat that her body was conditioned to, and not the central heat. And she would always say, I don't like that kind of heat, you know. And I guess being able to see the flame, see the fire, and then the heat that it gave off, yeah. And so that's what she really that's what she really liked, you know. But yeah, she loved that
Wood
heat.
stove.
Yeah,
That was the
best.
wood box
Yeah,
up for her.
wood stove.
I'll fill the wood box up for her.
Well, no, cause it's been warm since she's passed, but
Yeah,
but it's still
that's
it'll
the
remain
stove
there.
that I
Yeah,
cooked the chili on.
yeah.
Yep.
But her wood stove will remain.
But
Her
she
wood
would
stove
put
will still
the,
be going
Yeah,
as
but
long
she'll-
as I'm here, because I am going to burn it. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of chili that I made on the wood stove. Yep.
well, I used to tell her, I said, well, baby, now that the book is done, I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move all those big pots and pans. And she was like,
If you wanna be my
you
friend,
wanna be my friend. Do not touch my pots. And I'm like, why do you have such big pots to cook from? But she did that, and she did it with love, and put that pot in the back of her car, drove around the island, the beach, Hollywood, Adams Run, wherever that pot would take her, and she is feeding everybody. And if she couldn't do it, she would call the deacon at the church. She's like, somebody need to come on and do this good deed today. The good deed for her, feeding people, make sure people are happy, and don't go without eating. Now, the other thing, people will come to my mom's house. They knew what to do because the back porch door was always left unlocked. When she gets back, there's a cooler of shrimp, a cooler of fish, cooler of whatever it is. They knew she was not gonna save it for herself. She was gonna cook it and give it back to the community. That's the kind of person Emily Meggett was. And why, I don't know. But they have taken on her legacy of cooking and doing the same thing, not me, but they're doing it every single day. We have regular jobs, but she still finds time to cook something and take it to somebody. She bakes something and take it to somebody. She's cooking on that food truck. I don't know when Niecy sleeps, but Mommy would always say, I could call Niecy, okay, Grandmama, I'm coming. Niecy's there. True to her word, will do anything. Like, when will you sleep? Her husband even said that she cooked so much in her sleep. Corey, turn the stove on! Oh, the chicken's coming out! Turn it! In her bed, in her sleep, dreaming. She says, that's Grandma. Cooking even in her, turn the stove. Denise, you sleeping? Oh, she's even cooking while she's sleeping, dreaming about it, but they all love to cook, and I think God just blessed the family so much. and blessed us for having such a wonderful mother and producing all those children that she had, the grandkids and everybody else. And this is just life. This is her family. This is what she has laid the foundation for, even for this day, that we could, you know, talk about her and still laugh and have a good time in life. And I think that's what she would want us to do, and want us to be happy, and want us to mingle and mix with any and everybody that we come in contact with, because she never came in contact with a stranger. And that's just her life and her legacy. I think if you guys, I know you're here for the whole week, if you walk around on this beach and ask the question I asked about Emily Meggett, I think just about everybody that you come in contact with that's local, that lives here, can tell you that they know something about Emily Meggett. Now, you ask the, how do you say it? The Cummies. Now you ask the Cummies, they would know. But if you ask the Binyas, they can tell you. There's a family here on Edisto Beach, and he told me the story yesterday. He asked another white gentleman if he knows anybody on Edisto Island that can cook some good, like southern food. He says, but he didn't tell him who the person was. He didn't tell him the name. And DJ can attest to the story from yesterday that he told us. His name was Matthew Kaiser that he asked, and Matthew just told him, maybe. So maybe turned into 2 days later, my mom knocking on the couple's door, and she said to him, give me your keys and $100. And with a smile on her face, they never met her. Give me your keys and $100. Black people, I don't even have $100 to give to you. He gave her the keys, gave her the $100. She said, well, what did you do? He said, I wanted to give her 200, but she told me to give her 100, and I gave her the keys, and she left. Came back, he was having a party. Wanted somebody to cook them some good southern food, not just put something together for them. Emily Meggett was that person, and him, his wife, and my mom became
everything. She wasn't his biological mom, but my grandfather's son, but she raised him as his.
That's my mom.
That's right.
Yep.
And if she needed me,
She called.
she called. And I moved.
Yeah,
It wasn't a lot of money, but we wasn't poor. We were just broke. But we had something that money couldn't buy. That was love. Real love, boy. And I'm telling you, if you didn't get love there, you didn't go. And they talk about eating. If you went there, you could say you wasn't hungry or didn't want nothing, but you had to try something. Hoppin' John, I was the only one in my household, and my son ate Hoppin' John. My wife didn't like it, and my daughter didn't like it. MP taught Rhonda how to fix Hoppin' John in that kitchen. And now Sylvia and Rhonda both eat Hoppin' John. Love them. You understand it before. But she was always giving. If you went there, but don't go there now if you don't plan to do something, because she'll put you to work too. She gonna feed you, but she gonna put you to work. And when we came through, everybody took care of the kids. She took care of all the kids in there. If you come down that street 4 or 5 times, you better speak. But nowadays, the younger generation don't want you to say anything to their kids. That's why they're in that handbasket going to you know where. That's right. But there wasn't a lot of money, because there's too much money now. Money is ruling everything. The love of money, rather. With the love and the peace, money couldn't buy it. We thought we were rich.
Well, we didn't know we was poor.
We wasn't poor now, we just broke.
Yeah, didn't know, and my mom worked, my dad worked, and so, the older siblings had to take care of the younger siblings. And my mom thing is that when you wash them clothes and you put it on the line, you just couldn't put it on the line any kind of way, because she said people drive by your house and then you got a mixed match of clothes on the line. So you have to put all the whites, then the lights, then the colors, you know, then the sheets or whatever. And you better have them hung that way. If you didn't, you was gonna be in trouble when she got home. And because my mom trusted us to stay at home and do the chores that she had written out for us. We washed dishes for a week at a time. Your assignment was on the refrigerator. But if you was bad, then the neighbors had the permission to whip you. And then when my mom got home, you got another whip. But kids today, you can't do that because you can't touch their children at all. And my mom never even asked what you was doing or why you did it, because her thing was, the neighbor is an adult, and if the neighbor told me that you did something, then I'm gonna take the neighbor's word for it, because I already told you, you know, before I left, this is what I wanted you to do, or this is what you need to do. And so I think that if we took some of the things that the elderly people have taught us, especially when it comes to raising children, I think we'll have a better society of kids. But because we're now, just like you say, we got too much money now, and so we allow our kids to do a whole lot of things which I think ruin them. I think siblings are closer to each other when we share, or when we have to share the same bedroom or share the same TV. Now kids tell you, well, this is my room. They don't want you coming in their room. They close the door. Well, not in my house. You're not gonna close the door, because I'm taking the door off the hinge, so you won't have no door or to close. And I have a son, and I have done the exact same thing with him. So he was without a door on the hinge for his last 3 years of high school, because you're not gonna close the door. I'm gonna take it off the hinge, and you won't have a door. You can have some privacy when you go to the bathroom, but in the bedroom, we're not gonna close the doors in here, because we never slept with doors closed in my parents' house. You know? No, you couldn't do that. So,
Last question is, I like to go back to the Hop and John. You know, because I haven't heard the name Hop and John in a long time. My grandmother, my mother, my father, all of them Hop and John. How did you make it? I want to see if it was a general thing. How did you make it?
Well, you gotta ask somebody when you baby, because I can't. They want to know later.
Okay.
And my daughter not here.
Now, go around and say, my father grew sugar cane. My father made sugar cane, my grandfather did too. They would take it, have the cane grind, make syrup, homemade syrup. Come home, cook some rice, large pot of rice, then you have some field peas, and put that sugar cane in there, Hop and John.
That's the sale for the don't tell it.
now you use the field peas now. You use the field peas. Not no sugar cane.
The sugar cane, the syrup.
Oh, no, you gotta don't your field pieces,
You gotta have the syrup in it, that makes the.
It's too sweet.
Don't tell him how to cook it. Tell him you got to buy the book.
Don't tell it. Hop and John, because my father, field peas, he grew the field peas, he grew the sugar cane. He had to buy, when he was growing up, they grew rice. They grew up down, they were down from the Buford in that area, and they grew rice. So they grew their rice, grew their sugar cane, and field peas and everything, and they made the Hop and John. I want to hear how you made the Hop and John. That's what they told us. I saw them do it, my father and my grandmother.
She said, don't tell it.
Hop and John. I haven't heard that word in a long time.
Now you do use the field peas, I will tell you that. And I don't know if in your time, but when my mom and my dad grew up, and you know, they would kill a hog and take the hog to the market, and then you got the meat and all of that stuff. But back then, and my mom is probably the only person I know now that still has that, not now, but still, they used to call the meat Butts meat,
Yes,
but
sir.
it's actually fat back that has a strip of
Back,
lean
yes,
in it.
yes.
But up north, when you buy fat back, it's just, you don't have the strip of lean in it, so there's a difference in that meat. And my mom cooked with that up until the day that, you know, that she left this earth.
That's how you flavor your food with that fat back.
The flavor of it is very different. You know, it has, so they call it, fancy name now, they call it salt pork. But if you grew up around this area, Edisto or whatever, they call it butts meat, is what they call it. So, in case you all haven't never seen it, my sister went home and she got some and I gave it to Marilyn. She put it in the refrigerator so you could fry it for breakfast in the morning or however you wanna have it. Put it in a pot of greens or beans and it'll season your pot. Really, really good. And you can tell the difference in it. You know, for the people that live up north, you can tell the difference because the fat back is just fat. But that salt pork, it has a strict of lean in that meat. And it really seasons your pot really good. You know, you got some really boil it because it's very salty. Yes,
But you know,
it's very salty.
my mother's sister moved from South Carolina to New Jersey, and they were cooking with that kind of meat. And it was surprising how many people from south to south went north, and when they found out they were cooked with that back. She had all kinds of friends that didn't love that flavor, that mystery from
That flavor,
south to north.
yeah, the flavor. Marilyn is showing it off now. That's so so that's the meat right there. You always see your pot, really good. There's a lot of rich history here on Edisto Island, and you know, my mom worked on a plantation for like 45 years. And
When I got behind you.
45. Yeah, 45 minutes. Yeah, she worked on a plantation for 45, you know, winters, and then she worked on Edisto Beach during the summer. And I know you can't even imagine that back in them days, here's a lady, husband and wife that has 10 children. My mom worked every day, and she made $11.71 a week. And you think that you have 10 children, how do you take care of 10 children? And then you got a husband too, and you got $11.71 a week. But like my aunt said, back then, things were very cheap back then. But that is not a whole lot of money when you have 10 children. And her last child was born in 1967. My mom was 33 years old and had 10 children. But she was 33. At 33 years old, she had 10 children. And that's a lot. That is a lot of kids. Yeah, that's a lot of kids for a 33-year-old. But, you know, yeah, she did what she needed to do. She survived. She raised all of her children. Never had to go to the jailhouse to get one of them, but you wasn't going there, and she already told you, if you go, I'm not coming to get you. So you already knew better. And she used to always tell us too, I brought you here and I'll take you out. So you better take them words seriously. And so, you know, it's just I think it's just a lesson for the younger people to learn, not saying that we're old, but for younger people to learn that, you know, you respect your elders, and a lot of times it's just good to sit and listen to them, hear their stories about where they came from, the things that they endured, because now, a lot of the society now is like a microwave. Everything is quick, fast, and in a hurry. They don't want to wait on anything. What we want now. You know, our parents had to save money under the mattress just to, you know, make sure that they could go and buy something. If you tell these kids today, you know, well, you can't have this right now, I got to wait until I get paid or whatever. They don't wanna hear that, you know, but that is what they need to know, that everything does not come when you want it. There are things that you have to wait for. Because when you think about it, if God gave you everything that you want right now, we wouldn't know how to handle it. That's why he don't bless us sometimes until we get older in life, because he knows that we can't handle the blessing at a young age. Because if he was to give us everything, we would act a fool. And we would not, you know, and we would not.
We wouldn't be acting.
You know, right, we just wouldn't, yeah, we just wouldn't do, we wouldn't do right, and we wouldn't think about anybody else, we wouldn't think about sharing, with anybody, it would be about us, so, we just need to learn how to just wait, on God, but be respectful, in the things, that you do, and never forget the values and the morals that your parents, teach you. And I know sometimes for young people, they're thinking that their parents, that you never lived, you never done anything in your life, and you're old fogey or whatever.
You're born.
But, that's right, but you just have to, just sit back, take it all in, and know that they're not telling you anything that's wrong. They're telling you what's right, and they just want you to be able to go out there and be successful in your life. But you can't have success and act a fool at the same time and think you can do any and everything that you want to do, because life doesn't work that way.
I'm gonna share one more thing, and I know you guys have other activities. This page number 29 in this entire book is the best page in this book to me. And the reason I'm gonna call this the best page in the book to me, this writing that's in the background of this book, this was written on brown parchment paper, white parchment paper, but by the time my mom showed it to us, it was kind of brown, sitting there. This was the writing of her grandmother, and I look at this writing, I love it, because this is the way my mom wrote. And I was like, is this your handwriting? No, this was Mama's handwriting. So I said that to say that this was my mom's handwriting up until the day that she passed away. The way these words are written across this page, it probably doesn't make sense, but my mom tried to remember everything that she could from her grandmother back from the 1893 storm. And this, and like I said, I don't cook, but I like to read. But that writing, I can't read it. Well, I can read it, but I just want you to see that writing.
Yeah, no, but read it before you pass it around.
Okay.
It's fragmented.
The time of my life on Edisto, where you can tell something rub off the page, was born into the writing is hard because it was on that parchment paper, but I can read the story here. The 1893 storm came in the night. It was when my grandmother lived in the cabin on the Mitchell plantation. This is a script she wrote about it. So that's the script, okay? The time of my life on Edisto Island, where I was born, it is a small island, and on this island, my father and mother lived here. They were poor people, worked from 6 a.m. until the dawn of day. Mother and dad were married in 1891. The following year, she, again, having children, time was harder. It seemed the more kids they had, the harder it got. On this plantation where they lived, the master was a farmer. Mr. Mitchell had so much land until when the days is through, Papa get home at 9 p.m. Daddy was small. I don't know what that meant, but Daddy was small. Mama and Papa, they plant a lot of corn. When it had enough to grind, they made grits. That was a big help. In 1893, there was a big storm on the island. In this house where Mama and Papa lived on this hill, not far from the river, the tide was getting higher and higher until the house was full of water. Her brother where they were there with her. She was praying for the tide to go down. Instead of down, it gets worse. Whatever they had was floating in the water. This house had a loft. Ma and Frank climb up there to get saved. Still the tide get higher. So they went on the housetop. They still surrounded by water, no house in sight. All of a sudden, the top of the house washed down, and Mama and Frank was on it from 5 p.m. until 7:30 a.m. that morning. She was out in this ocean praying and crying to be saved. Rain falling and fog on their head and shoulders, but they won't let go the housetop. That was what saved them. That was what saved them. About 6 a.m., they can see a little where they were at 7, they foot reach sand. Where this housetop 10 stuck in the sand was a bundle of trees. That is where the master house was. So they walked around to the house and knocked. They didn't have any clothes on, but some branch they put around them. Mr. Mitchell was shocked and said, "What happened, Betsy? What happened to your house?" "It all in the creek, sir." "How did you get here?" "On the housetop, sir." So Mr. Mitchell put them in a little house in the yard and gave them some clothes. Didn't know what was wrong with the clothes, but it gave Mama and Papa and Frank an itch for almost 7 years. This was written on that parchment paper, and my mom tried to inscribe it the best she could from the 1893 storm that happened. Yeah, no clothes, and they wrapped themselves in whatever they gave them.
Like Adam and Eve.
Right. So I thought this was the very best inscription that they could have done with putting that parchment paper in this book of what my mom saved from her grandmother. So interesting reading. You can see how it's written and inscribed.
Let's give the Meggett family a hand. So many, I didn't want to turn it into a question and answer because we just wanted to hear, but there's so many questions.
Oh, and Carmen's gonna do one too, right?
Yeah.